On tap, Troegs Perpetual Imperial Pale Ale.
Better beer authority, better beer.
Hi, I'm Brian Shea, and this is your Better Beer Authority. Today we take our blind taste panel to Hershey, Pennsylvania. Troegs Brewing was founded by brothers John and Chris Trogner in 1996. This American craft brewer welcomes visitors with a large industrial German beer hall, unique for its direct views of the brewing and packaging operations. Today the panel will taste Perpetual IPA, distinctly marketed as an Imperial Pale Ale, not an India Pale Ale. Perpetual undergoes both hopback and dry hopping method and features Bravo, Chinook, and Mount Hood hops in the boil. Mount Hood and Nugget in the hopback and is then further dry hopped with Citra and Cascade hops. This beer received a 92 rating on Beer Advocate, and the brothers give it an 85. Perpetual IPA is available year-round in tap, cases, and six-pack bottles. Let the blind taste test begin. Good afternoon, guys. How are you?
Good afternoon.
Welcome, welcome. Mark, I'm going to start with you. You got this nice beer in front of you. Give me a little bit about the aroma and taste.
Okay. So first, the aroma. Definitely get what I think is some kind of noble hops, some probably German Pilsner malt, maybe a little bit of alcohol. See on the taste. I think it's a slight fruitiness. I wonder if it's the hops. I don't think it's the yeast. I think it's probably I don't want to say a lager yeast, but it's definitely a clean yeast flavor. Maybe a slight kind of grapefruit, but I think it's generally pretty clean flavors coming through. Definitely easy to drink. I say pretty high drinkability. Very little alcohol.
Rich, how are you?
Good,
how you doing
sir.
today?
Good, Brian. Good.
How about mouthfeel? Talk about the...
Mouthfeel, it's, it looks like it could be thin, but it's not that thin. It's kind of, I'm never good at describing mouthfeels unless it's really thin or really robust. It's somewhere in the middle, probably closer to thin, but it's got a slight creaminess. There's good lacing here on the glass, and that kind of, so there's definitely lingering effects from some bitterness to it. But it's a good, solid mouthfeel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Andrew, how are you?
I'm good. Yourself?
Good. Do you have anything additional you want to add as far as the, what you kind of think the style is? And then what we'll do is after you kind of talk about the beer a bit, we'll make our way back and talk about the ABV and what you guys rate the beer.
Okay. Now, I mean, overall, they kind of said the same as how I feel about this. I mean, it's a very clean beer. There's nothing like overly. It's not like overly citrusy. It's not overly malty. It's clean. Nice, refreshing. I definitely get that, like it's either like a Kolsch or some sort of a lager style like aftertaste that I'm used to when I've had like a Kolsch or a Pilsner or something along those lines. But I agree. I mean, it's got a nice mouthfeel. ABV wise on this, I would imagine something like this is probably I'm gonna say right in like a 6% range.
Okay.
So
okay. And your rating? I'm sorry.
My rating on this, I was debating between like a 6 and a 7, and I'm going to give it a 7.
7, okay.
Because there's nothing that is off-putting to me. It's an enjoyable beer. There's nothing, I'm over the moon about. But, I mean, it's a solid go-to beer for me.
Great. Rich?
There's definitely a light malt bill on here. Even though you smell some sweetness in there. I'm going with the 6 on this.
6, okay.
I don't mind drinking at all. There's a bitterness there. That's okay. Can't pinpoint what beer this is. We're talking Kolsch, Pilsner. I think it's some kind of ale. It could be a bitter, but I think bitters are usually dark.
You have a sense of ABV on it?
ABV, it's probably around 5.5.
Oh, 5.5.
I don't think it's anything much. I mean, it's a fine beer. I'd probably order it in a bar if there wasn't too many options.
Yeah. Okay. And Mark, finally with you.
For ABV, I'll say 5, just so we kind of round out the half numbers here. Rating, I'm going to give it a 6. I think it's, again, there's nothing that I pick out that's flawed with the beer. I don't get any DMS flavors, which I think sometimes you can get from lagers, Kolsch's.
Can you explain the DMS real quick?
Okay, it's kind of like a
Just for
yeah, sure. No. I mean, what usually if you don't boil long enough, DMS dimethyl sulfides are kind of a sulfury flavor to a beer. And I think with this style, because it's so kind of light, it's easy for DMS to shine through. And we're very sensitive to even small amounts of DMS, like a few parts per million we can pick up. And so I think with lagers, Pilsners, Kolsch's even, it's really high probability if there's a small amount of DMS, it's going to not be masked by these other flavors that might be in the ale, like hops or some rich malts. Unfortunately, this kind of style, it's more for me. I mean, I know it's classic, but it's hard for this type of style to stand out. And I think I would, there's very few kind of light lagery beers that I would give maybe more higher than like a 7 or 8 on the BBA scale. So a 6 might not sound very high, but I think it's pretty good for this style.
Okay.
So how many Nobel Prizes for science did you won?
I'm working on one.
Okay, so I thought
Yeah,
Beer related.
get back to me.
beer related.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is very important. Very important.
Yeah.
Helps civilization. So
Sure.
All right. So before I do the reveal, does anyone want to try to take a stab at it? Try to guess which beer you're drinking.
No.
I would have no idea.
Based on the conversation, I think you guys are a little off. So
Oh,
quite off.
fine.
Nice.
All right, fellas. I've heard a lot about lagers and
Heady topper.
pilsners.
Yeah, right.
You couldn't be further.
Wow.
Perpetual.
Are you
Nice.
kidding? Yeah, we were a bit
Well.
off.
Way off.
So let's pass these around here.
Yeah.
This is from Troegs Brewing Company in Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Excellent.
Let's go. That one might actually be up to here.
The bottle date on here.
7.5%. So I was the
Yeah,
closest.
it's
without going-
7.5%. And let me clarify, because this actually came as a surprise to me, that it's not marketed as an India Pale Ale. It's actually, they consider it an Imperial Pale Ale.
Okay. Okay, that would make a little bit of more sense, because if it was an IPA, I'd say it's probably a very light IPA. It's like,
Yeah.
it's really hugging that line of IPA versus Pale Ale.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that I've never come across. I've always heard with IPAs that they're heavily dry hopped to kind of get that get the hop oils and kind of get that rawness that comes from that process. But with Troegs, they talked about doing both the dry hopping and the hop backing process. And Andrew, they're what they describe as they do dry hopping in the fermentation, and then they do hop backing in probably some sort of external compartment. But then they return to do another dry hop. And I wanted to ask you about both of those processes. You can talk about the difference between dry hopping and hop backing.
Well, I mean, I know dry hopping, home brewing myself, when I do IPAs or, something like that where I want to add a lot of aroma, a little bit of flavor, that's really where the dry hopping comes in. Because you're adding it in and you're letting it sit in the beer at that time. Now with hop backing, if I remember correctly, that's where you have like an external device, I know, similar to like Sierra Nevada's Torpedo, or I know here in Alexandria over at Port City, they have a Hopnado.
Hopzuka.
Hopzuka.
Hopnado is actually a Troegs also.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. But that's an external device where they take the beer, and the device itself is a big, giant container that's just loaded and packed to the brim with hops, and then the beer is just flushed right through it.
So it's like a filtering.
Almost like a filtering. So the beer doesn't get that much contact time because it's constantly flowing through.
Yeah.
But as it's going, as the beer keeps going, I believe it's stripping a lot of those oils.
Yeah.
It's usually during the cooling process too, right? I think.
Right.
Yeah.
So you want to get the wort down to a certain temperature to really, so you're not extracting bitterness, you're just extracting the aroma. That's my
Right.
Okay.
Can I just say I'm surprised that this was Perpetual? I think two years ago when it was released, I was all over it. I drank the hell out of it.
Yeah.
And Well, either my palate's changed, the beer's changed, or probably just my palate's changed.
But I think Troegs, as the name implies, has a German kind of heritage, and I think there's still probably a good amount of German Pils malt in here, and I think that's maybe what I think is overwhelming some of it, and why we're not. I mean, you were more spot on than me about knowing it was an ale, and even saying that you might have thought it was an IPA. But
as far as the hops, it's got Mount Hood, it's got Chinook, it's got Nugget, Citra, and Cascade. But maybe the malt, what you're describing, the malts, kind of, and then the fact that there's the hop backing may kind of pull that away from someone tasting it and thinking, oh, it's an IPA. Maybe some of that counters that, some of the rawness that you get from an IPA that you might be pulled into like a German style, Pilsner of some sort. So, okay, Perpetual IPA gets a 6.3 from the BBA crew. What are your thoughts on this beer? Have you had it before? Have you visited the Troegs Brewery up in Hershey, Pennsylvania? I do recommend it. I'm Brian Shea, and this is your Better Beer Authority.
Better Beer Authority.